King was just kicking it around my man.
It's the spoiled king, better than diamond rings. Football,
Wildcat
football,
Wildcat
football,
Wildcat
football,
Wildcat
football.
Welcome to the Married with Picks podcast, Season 5, Episode 18, Week 18. Final week of the regular season. And it's probably the worst week. Like, Week 18 is always kind of crappy, but this is, like, by far the worst. So a lot of teams are pretty much locked in to seeding. And there's only a couple teams that are actually playing for a spot. But we'll go through it with each game, what the scenarios are for these teams.
There are additional teams playing for seeding, though.
But not many. Like in the AFC? The first, second, and fourth are set. Like, it can't change. You guys in the NFC are locked into the 2 seat, but we'll touch on it as we go through. Well,
Detroit and Minnesota are still playing for 1, so one's going to get the 1, one's going to get the 5.
Right.
The 6 and the 7 are still going to flip-flop. Maybe the Commanders are at 6, Green Bay's at 7. They could flip-flop.
yes.
Tampa's locked. Rams are locked.
Tampa's not locked.
Well, they could flip-flop as well. So
No, they have to win or they're not in.
Right. Tampa could lose and Atlanta could win, and then they would be out of the playoffs, and Atlanta
But
would
I
be
think that's the
division.
other aspect. A lot of these teams that need something are playing like such a shitty team that, like, we'll get into it as we go through.
The West, the AFC, the NFC West is a lock. The Rams are in.
We're going to go through it as we hit the games. So, first game is the Browns at the Ravens. And these lines, I think, have moved a little bit since I put this together. So, I have the Ravens at 19.5. I think it's at 20 now. So, the Ravens need the win to clinch the division. And I don't know why the NFL, I can only figure that they thought the Ravens-Browns was going to be such a shitty game that they didn't want to make it the 8 o'clock game, because it would have made more sense to make the Bengals-Steelers at 4, because then the Steelers are going to know what the Ravens did. So it makes the game less meaningful for the Steelers. But regardless, the Ravens do need this win to clinch the division, because if they lost and the Steelers won, then the Steelers win the division because they have the tiebreaker. I was going to be willing to take the Ravens even at a ridiculous number if it was DTR starting for the Browns. But it's going to be Bailey Zappi, who's their 4th string, who they just signed a couple weeks ago. I don't know what he's going to look like out there, but it can't be any worse than DTR. So I would worry that the Ravens get up early, get up big, and then take their foot off the gas. So that's the consideration you have to have with a lot of these games.
I think you're missing a point on this game, though. And it's going to be the same point, another point that's going to come into play with a bunch of these other games, right?
What's that?
The fact that there's a handful of teams, which we'll cover as we go through,
yes,
that have 3 wins on the season and they're fighting for the last pick of the draft. So depending on how things shake out, there's multiple 3-win teams, including the Giants, who had won last week and is now pulled up into a tie for the worst record in the league. My point is the Browns are one of those 3-win teams. So when you figure that they just signed Zappi a couple weeks ago and they're going to let him start this game, the 10 could be it. So that's what you really got to consider, even though it's a big line at 19.5. The Ravens want to lock in the division, and they're completely opposite ends of the spectrum here. Ravens trying to finish in first place, win the game, and lock up the division, get in the playoffs, get a great seed. The Browns are trying to lose so that they can get the number 1 pick of the draft.
If they're trying to lose, then starting DTR would have been the right way to go.
I don't know, but Zappi is the guy from New England, right?
Yeah.
Who couldn't win a game.
Well,
So, I mean, pick your poison there. They both suck.
I mean, DTR started the last 2 games. They've scored 3 points in each game.
Well, the only thing I would think is that, okay, now he's got 3 games. This would be his 3rd game under his belt. So as guys get more reps, right, they're going to look better. Zappi's coming in off the street.
Okay.
Looks much worse. I would take the Ravens here, even if it is 21 by kickoff. Right now it's 19.5. I see it flashing at 20 in a couple places.
Well, so my advice would be to take a few of these teams that are most likely going to win, outline it down a little bit and parlay it together. Well, yeah, I mean, you can even tease 20 points.
No.
So, but if you outline it down to like 9.5 and put it in with something else, at least get you to
There's too many points to tease.
Even
So I would
money.
either just lay off the game or take the Ravens.
Oh, you can outline. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But I think that's probably the way to go. Now, the other thing
So what would you, if you were going to outline it, which you have a selection of any line you want, what would you make it?
I would make it 9.5 probably,
Okay.
maybe 6.5. I tried to, because I wanted to see what the odds would be, to put the Ravens, another team at 6.5, 6.5, but there was nothing up on the Bucs game for some reason other than like the main line. It didn't have alt spreads. It didn't have any props listed. I don't know why a couple of games were like that. So to see what the odds would be, but anyway, all right, next game is the Bengals at the Steelers.
Well, the Bucs play the Saints, so I think there was a question before a couple hours ago whether they were going to get their quarterback back.
No, he was ruled out when I looked earlier.
Well, and Kamara is doubtful. He's not made a decision yet, so that could be impacting the Saints game and why there's no line available.
All right, so anyway, Bengals at Steelers is a Saturday night game. Steelers would win the division if the Ravens lose, but they're going to know what the Ravens did. So it makes the game less meaningful for the Steelers. I assume Tomlin is the guy that's going to play his starters regardless. Bengals would need to win this game, and then they need help. They would need the Broncos to lose and the Dolphins to lose, and they would get into the playoffs. Otherwise, even if they win and these other teams win, or one of the other teams, they're out. So Bengals are favored by 1.5 on my sheet. It might have gone up to like 2. I mean, the way the Bengals have been playing lately, Steelers kind of on the decline from their high. Bengals certainly have been playing lights out lately, so I would take the Bengals here.
So you made a comment earlier about flip-flopping these games and that the Ravens-Browns game should have been second, but I disagree with that. First of all, you got to look at ratings. You have two good teams that people are interested in here, Steelers and the Bengals, versus nobody cares about the Browns.
Right, but that's why I said they did it, but I mean, if you're...
The Steelers are really holding the 5 spot right now, so they're in the playoffs. They got to still have to win to make sure that they hold a good seed. They could technically...
No, if the Ravens win...
They're in no matter what.
Then they're not moving and they're in.
I mean, I'm talking about the Steelers.
Yeah, but the Steelers only benefit if the Ravens lose because they have the tiebreaker. So if they finish with the same record, then the Steelers win the division. But in order for that to happen, the Ravens have to lose.
So they could move down seed from the 5, which could inevitably get them in a matchup with.
Well, and that'll get us
right
to the.
Right now, they're sitting with Houston as the matchup, which is a much better matchup than either the Ravens or the Bills in the playoffs.
Well, but I don't like. Tomlin has been able to beat the Ravens.
He's not going to select.
Past.
If he had a choice, he would not pick the Ravens over the Houston Texans. Houston Texans have been faltering through the second half of the season.
But, yeah, I mean,
he doesn't want anything to do with the Ravens, believe me.
But all right,
There's
anyway,
a matchup. They just know
who's your
each other
pick?
too well.
Pick on this game.
I like the Bengals. I think that the Steelers have lost 3 in a row. They just look like they lost their mojo.
Oh, and there was
So
some.
I can't confidently take them. They won 44-38 in a game that was back and forth, very high scoring, obviously.
There was some comments. Apparently, I don't know all the details, but the reporter asked Pickens something, and I guess Russ said something in a press conference, like kind of making it sound like an interception or something was Pickens' fault. Pickens is a little bit of a diva, so I don't think it went over well. So there might be some animosity going on there.
It's not gonna end well.
Yeah, he's a bit of a hothead. So, all right. So we're on the same side there. So next game, these are the Sunday 1:00 games. Panthers at Falcons. Falcons are 7.5-point favorites. Now the Falcons only get into the playoffs if they win and the Bucs lose. Now the Bucs are playing at the same time, but they are playing the Saints. And they would be the 4 seed if they were to get in, but most likely they are not going to get in. They will be playing to get in. So they are going to be playing for the win. Panthers have been kind of up and down, like they're competitive. And then I think it was the Cowboys game. They really weren't competitive. They ended up getting blown out by the Bucs last week. I would assume that they'll be competitive here. So I would lean to take the points with the Panthers. division
I like
game.
the Panthers as well. I mean, you got the rookie quarterback, playing Penix for the Falcons.
I'm surprised that you're going Panthers. I would think you'd be all over Penix.
I mean, I love Penix, but I just think, I don't know how you can comfortably give up, more than a touchdown here with Carolina showing flashes of, playing some decent football, especially with Bryce Young getting back in the mix. They would love to play spoiler here to keep them out of the playoffs. So it's a division matchup. I just look at a division matchup. Carolina, trying to see. I don't think they're not a team that has 3 wins, so they're not really playing. I mean, everybody's playing for seed, right, or playing for draft pick. You'll lose here, you could save yourself 4 or 5 spots, but this is not a case where this is one of the teams that has 3 wins only and is vying for first, second, or third pick of the draft. So I'm going to take the Panthers here. I think the Falcons, even though I like Penix, going to keep it inside a touchdown, if not win outright for the Panthers.
All right. Same side of that one. So next game is the Commanders at the Cowboys. Commanders are 6.5-point favorites. So the Commanders would get the 6th seed with a win or Packers loss. They are playing for seeding only. On the other side, and I don't know if this is just maybe like a media creation or if there's something to it, whether the starting quarterback for the Cowboys would be Cooper Rush or Trey Lance. Mike McCarthy basically didn't answer the question, so I don't know if there's any feasibility to the starter actually being Trey Lance. But regardless, we saw last week the Cowboys kind of struggle without CeeDee Lamb out there for Rush. And I really liked this matchup when they played the first time because I thought Dan Quinn, former defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, was really going to stick it to them. And that game from the get-go went against me. They were like 10-point favorites in that game. But I am going to take the Commanders here up to a touchdown. This is one game where, and I don't know if I mentioned this, I think you might have cut me off, but there's some people that are playing for incentives in their contract. The only one that I missed was Derrick Henry in the Ravens game needs 1 touchdown for a $500,000 bonus. Now this game, Zach Ertz has incentives in his contract. He needs quite a bit. So Ertz would need 90 yards, 9 catches, or 2 touchdowns. Each one of those separate is a $250K bonus. So it's probably a little aggressive for Ertz. And since they are technically playing for seeding, I don't know that that's going to be a priority in this situation. Who do you got here, dear?
Well, I guess they're playing around in the media with thinking, like you said, that Trey Lance might get the start. But it sounds like they've been going out this week in practice, similar to the way they've been going through the past few weeks with Cooper Rush taking the majority of the snaps. So I expect Rush to quarterback here, but you never know what McCarthy could do at the end. I like the Commanders. I think the Commanders have a bitter taste in their mouth from the game that they were hyped up to win in Washington earlier in the season and got embarrassed. And I think they're going to look to put a stamp on the Cowboys here. So I know that you were, really looking forward to that last game, and we were both on the wrong side of that one brutally. And it was kind of a weird way how it played out. Washington did their best to kind of come back. They had the moxie in the weeks before showing comebacks. And then, they're miss an extra point, go onside kick where Dallas picks it up and runs it back for a touchdown. So they separated themselves by, I think the final was like 9 or 10 points. But it wasn't even. It was a closer game than what the score alluded to. But to the point of this game,
no, I think they tied it at the end, but they needed the extra point would have tied it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was that close. With the Commanders, you can take a look here. What is that? I'm liking the Commanders here. I just think that they're going to be riled up to get back into the playoffs, and the way that they're so young, they're not really going to be. I don't think they're going to rest many people going into this game. So I look for them to put their full effort into whipping the Dallas Cowboys' ass. All
right, so next game is the Bears at the Packers. Packers are 10.5-point
the game
favorites.
Finished 34-26, by the way, so it was an 8-point spread.
Okay, so you were right.
I think they got a garbage touchdown really at the end. So I think you were right. It was like an extra point, but then they separated it with that onside kick.
Okay. So Packers would get the 6th seed with a win or Commanders loss. Packers playing for seeding only. If they do win, however, they get the Rams instead of the Eagles. So I would think that would be something they would probably want. And this is a division game. The Packers have dominated the matchup with the Bears. Historically, this is where Aaron Rodgers said he owned them. And it was true. It still is true. So I do think the Packers can whoop up on the Bears here. I don't necessarily like the hook. So I would, and I think this is one I was parlaying with the alt spread with the Ravens at 6.5.
So the Bears just barely missed this spread here for 3 wins with 4 total wins on the season. So they're not going to get the first pick of the draft. But if you look at their last 10 games, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games that they've lost in a row. But in the majority of these games, they have kept it fairly close, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 of the 10 games.
3.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Well, they played Seattle and it was 6-3, but nobody was scoring. So
was brutal.
I'm looking at this to be a surprise. I think it's too easy to go on the Packers here. One of those games where it's so easy you should go the other side. So especially if the line's going to be above 10, I would take the Bears.
I mean, I guess this is a game, too, where if they go up early, we might have to worry about garbage time production, because I think the Bears can certainly score in that situation. We've seen them kind of score in the second half in a lot of these games where the team goes up big in the first half.
I mean, this is where you got to be careful. It's week 18. You're not really exactly sure who's going to show up, and what teams' motivations are, like we're talking about. You got to figure out their motivation. Are they trying to necessarily win, or are they trying to get a better draft pick, So it's a tough week. This is a game where I just, unless you love the Packers, I don't know why you would take it. I'd play the Bears if I had to, but I'm not really going to touch the game.
All right. And these next 2, we're not going to talk about too much. Texans at Titans. Titans are 1.5-point favorites. Texans are locked into the 4 seed. I don't know necessarily whether they've said, but there was some talk that they would play their starters because of losing so brutally to the Ravens. Maybe get some good reps under their belt before they go into the playoffs. But obviously, they have been hit with some significant injuries over the course of the season, so they certainly are going to have that in the back of their mind as well. On the other side, the coach said that it's both Will Levis and Mason Rudolph are going to play, so I wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole.
Well, I kind of like Davis Mills in this position where it's not really.
But was he? Did they say he's starting and that the starters are resting?
Oh, instead of C.J. Stroud?
Yeah.
I was just assuming that Davis Mills was going to start this game.
Well, that's not what I had read.
Okay. Well, Davis Mills will get in the game eventually.
But that's, I mean,
so
you're going to have to watch for like changes because some coaches they're not answering the question. So you don't know 100% what's going to happen.
I like it if Davis Mills plays in this game. I think he's had a lot of time in this system. He's played for Houston for a while and has been the quarterback there. And he can move this offense. If CJ Stroud plays, that's even better. I think the Titans are shot. I like Houston here. I think they use it as a tune-up. You got to look at the attitude of the team, too, like we're talking about. This coach is not going to let them just take the week off and not try. Even if he has the backups in there. Houston's coach.
Okay. All right. Next game is Jaguars at Colts. Colts are 4.5-point favorites. It will be Joe Flacco starting in this one. This is another team, both teams not in playoff contention, and I wouldn't put my money on it. You have anything you'd like to say about this game?
The Texans game?
The Jags at Colts.
It sucks. I would take the points. Bad game. Richardson's not playing.
Right.
Flacco looks like he's a stick in the mud and can't move the ball. I would take the Jags.
He moved the ball fine last week, but all right. And then the next game is the Bills at the Patriots. Bills are 2.5-point favorites. Bills are locked into the 2 seed. Josh Allen apparently is going to start this game because he has some start streak, but he probably won't play very long. The Patriots are currently in the spot to get the number 1 draft pick. So I don't know what to expect in this game. I wouldn't touch it. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I think Mitchell Trubisky and the Bills will look to continue the success that franchise has. And I think when they step on the field against the Pats are just going nowhere quick. So I'm going to take the Bills on this one.
Okay.
It's less than a field goal.
I would take the Patriots if I wasn't sure that they don't want to win because they want to stay in the number 1 pick spot. So we saw them compete 2 weeks ago. So
I like Trubisky in this spot.
Yeah, you would. Next game is the Giants at the Eagles. Eagles are 3-point favorites. Eagles are locked into the 2 seed. They've already announced that they will not be playing Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley. I don't know if A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith were specifically mentioned, but I would imagine that they wouldn't play much either. I don't know what the fuck the Giants are doing. So... they were clearly not trying to win games last week. They got a wild hair and decided to actually play football. I don't know what they're going to do in this spot. Are they going to play or are they going to not? So I'm not touching this, period.
Eagles, I think, I look for Tanner McKee to get the start here. I know Kenny Pickett, the second stringer, is a little banged up with his ribs, and, they had to get the win last week. So he played through it, got shot up before the game and at halftime. But you don't need to do that now. The Eagles, you're locked in. They said that they're going to rest their starters. Tanner McKee's a gunslinger out of Stanford. Threw the ball very nice against the Cowboys and kept the offense moving. Probably looked better than Kenny Pickett. I don't know.
It's amazing what a good offensive line will do.
Yeah, no doubt. But you're going to need a good offensive line with him because he's not one of those fast, speedy quarterbacks that's going to move away from the rush. He's kind of a stick in the mud, but he's got a hell of an arm. So I think that's plenty to beat the Giants, who are going to look to they knew that they could get a win. They got it last week. Well, look for them to pack it up this week. But
but apparently, it's strength.
Giants suck.
Strength of schedule is what the tiebreaker is on the draft pick. So that's what I thought. I was like, maybe they knew they were already locked into the number 1, so that's why they competed, but that's not true. So they're in 4 or 5 at this point. So I don't know. I don't know what the hell that was, but all right, next game is the Saints at the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, I believe at this point, are 14.5-point favorites. Bucs need to win to get in, and they would be either the 3rd or 4th seed. Now, there was some talk about Derek Carr potentially coming back, but he has been ruled out. Kamara is doubtful. I don't know what the situation is with Olave, but we talked about that last week. I don't know why they would run him out there at this point in the season, given his history with the concussions. Mike Evans has some incentives in his contract. 5 catches, 85 yards for $3 million. So you can look at his prop. I think it is in the 90 range, though, but you could certainly alt it down. And obviously they are competing in this one. The Saints with Spencer Rattler have not been very competitive. I think the Bucs, when they played earlier in the season, was that a Spencer Rattler game and they blew him out pretty good. So I would expect the same here. I don't love the hook, but I certainly expect the Bucs to compete here and not have too much of a problem getting by the Saints at a hefty number. So I would take the Bucs here. Yeah,
so it was a Rattler game. It was 51-27. They absolutely annihilated them. Scored 20 points in the 4th quarter. New Orleans put up 27 in the 2nd quarter. Out of nowhere. I think some of them were short defensive.
Yeah, I think there was some turnovers. So,
but it's 13.5 under 14. I love the Bucs here.
Yeah. All right. Next game is Chiefs at Broncos. In this one, Broncos are actually 10.5-point favorites because the Chiefs are locked into the 1 seed. Broncos would get the 7th seed with a win. The Chiefs will be resting starters, so it will be Carson Wentz starting this game. No Travis Kelce, most likely no Pacheco, no Hunt. DeAndre Hopkins has some incentives in his contract. So 9 catches, 140 yards, $250K each. And then he would need one more touchdown to get $500,000 bonus.
He's not getting that shit with Wentz.
So maybe the touchdown, but I don't know. Or the catches.
He's not getting 9 catches. He's not getting 150 yards, 143 yards, whatever.
I don't know about 140 yards. I am interested to see Carson Wentz up against the Denver defense, though. And obviously with Denver needing the win to get into the playoffs, because they could actually end up out completely if the Bengals win and the Dolphins lose. Or I guess the Dolphins don't necessarily matter to them. But if the Bengals win on Saturday, then they will need to compete. So I do like the Broncos. I don't think Carson Wentz up against this defense is going to be a good thing. Again, I don't love the hook, and I would probably alt it down. What do you got?
I like the Broncos.
Okay.
I just don't like Carson Wentz, I got a couple pick sixes in him.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe Denver defensive touchdown. And on the other side, Courtland Sutton has incentives. Where's he at? 82 yards for $500K, 3 touchdowns for an extra bonus of $200K. So I don't think he's getting 3 touchdowns, but hey, it might be worth a bet on the Courtland Sutton to score 3.
I've been seeing a lot of
I wonder what the odds on that would be.
a lot of comments online from Chiefs fans, so excited to get to see finally Carson Wentz suit up and play for the Chiefs.
Oh, God.
It's fucking ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, I think they might
Carson
be
Wentz pulls the hood over some other fan base. I'm glad it's not
Well,
us
hell,
this
I mean, they
time.
have Patrick Mahomes. What are they worried about Carson Wentz for?
I don't know.
I mean, I
can
could see if it
idiots,
was
the Chiefs fans.
somebody else, but okay. All
They're
right,
excited
next
about Carson Wentz.
Next
playing with a
game
bunch of backups.
is the Chargers at the Raiders. Chargers are 4.5-point favorites. Now, this is one where if the what is it? This one is if the Bengals win, then they would be playing for a different seed. But that's the only thing they're playing for is seeding. So I don't know what Harbaugh will do here, so I wouldn't touch this game. Raiders have been competitive. I actually really liked them last week.
I like them this week.
And they came out pretty good there. So
Division game.
they've
the
won
Chargers,
the last couple.
I loved them last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a killer game, and they smoked the Patriots. And I think for that reason, everybody's going to be on the Chargers
Was
bandwagon.
it the Patriots or the Saints? I think they played the Saints.
Didn't they play the Patriots on Saturday?
Oh, the Chargers?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Raiders.
No, I was talking about the Chargers.
Oh, I was
sorry.
talking about the Raiders. Okay.
I like the Raiders. I think, what you're saying.
Because you
don't know
said
what
you liked the
Chargers-
Raiders, and then
I like the Raiders, and I think, I like the Raiders. I think most of the action is going to be on the Chargers based off of them kicking the shit out of New England last week. Now they're going into the Raiders, who, remember, New England is one of those 3-win teams. They're playing for the draft pick, right? The Raiders I
Raiders are
believe,
at
have
least
4.
4.
Yeah, so they're not in for the top draft pick. But I think from a division standpoint, you look for the Raiders to show up. I think their coach, another culture thing like D'Amico Ryans we were talking about with Houston, how he's going to have his team fired up and ready to play. Raiders are going to be the same way, hopefully.
Okay. All right. Next game is the Seahawks at the Rams. Seahawks are 6.5-point favorites. The Rams have secured a playoff berth. They've already won the division. So they'll be either the 3rd or 4th seed. Do you know who the backup quarterback is for the Rams? I did not realize this. I mean, I can tell you. I just want to know if you know.
No.
Jimmy G.
No.
Yes.
Still in the league?
So he will be starting. I would imagine that there will be no Kyron Williams, no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua. So I don't know what that's going to look like. Now, Geno Smith has some incentives in his contract. He needs 175 passing yards. He has to have a completion percentage above 70. And if he won 10 games or made the playoffs, which obviously isn't going to happen, he gets $2 million. So that's a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably have to lean the Seahawks, but I wouldn't really bet this probably.
I'm going to take the Rams here. I just like getting the points. The team is like going into the playoffs, so even though they're sitting everybody, right? It's like soccer. They're sitting Stafford, Kyrie Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper, Kupp. But like you said, Jimmy Garoppolo has been sitting out, not playing football for how many years? 2-3 years now. He's going to be excited to get into this game.
Yeah, but who's he? Like we saw when Matt Stafford didn't have Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, he couldn't do anything. So what's Jimmy G going to do?
Well, Tutu Atwell.
And come on, I mean, Jimmy G is that guy that everybody thought was like the next Tom Brady, and he's been around the league, and
you should still have Tyler
it hasn't
Higbee
happened.
And Colby Parkinson, who's decent at tight end. You have DeMarcus Robinson at receiver, who's the only starter that's going to probably play. Tutu Atwell, but what I've liked the most is Blake Corum, the Michigan rookie. I've been waiting all season to do something. Now he's finally going to get the ball. So I'm looking for a big game out of Blake Corum, and I think that they'll keep it but within a touchdown.
Okay. All right, next game is the Dolphins at the Jets. Dolphins are 1.5-point favorites. Dolphins only get in with a win versus the Jets and a Broncos loss. Tua is again doubtful for this game. I don't know what the fuck the Jets are doing. I don't want any part of this. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't really want any part of this either.
I got sucked into taking the points with the Jets last week, and that didn't work out too well. I'm not touching them. Next game
Devontae Adams also playing for a couple of
I wasn't on the list, man.
Yeah, I saw he was playing for. Well, he's playing to get 1,000 yards. I think there's something.
Yeah, but Aaron Rodgers has needed one touchdown to have 500 career passing touch, but that's been for the last like 2 weeks, so it's obviously not a priority. So, all right, and then
is this gonna be Aaron Rodgers' last game ever?
I don't know.
Who's gonna want him as their quarterback?
Nobody. But I mean, somebody will take a chance on him, right? Like, there are teams out there that are desperate.
I mean, if he still wants to play and he'll accept a backup role, then absolutely. But I don't know who's going to really...
And has to take Devontae Adams.
You know where he could show... You know what would make sense is if he went to the Raiders.
Yeah, but like...
The show in Vegas.
Yeah, but Tom Brady owns like part... I don't see that happening because he
not
owns...
married to anybody.
But he owns part of... Tom Brady owns part of the team now. Do you really think he would bring in Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, why not? What would he care? If he was going to sell tickets, he doesn't give a shit. Bring in Aaron Rodgers, draft a quarterback. That's what they're going to end up doing. They're going to draft a quarterback, but, you know, you bring in somebody like Aaron.
And then
to the point, if they draft a quarterback and Aaron Rodgers was only going to play like, you know, half the season or less than that, I think that if Tom Brady had any animosity to Aaron Rodgers, he would love that. To be able to, like, sit him for the second half of the season. Just be like, screw you. You're not even going to be able to finish the season. All I know is that if I was Aaron Rodgers, I would have been wishing I retired. Yeah. I mean, listen, he's got 1 foot out the door trying to get this Jeopardy hosting job.
But everybody like hates it there. So at the Jets, like the what's his name? Wilson, the wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, he wants out.
Well, that's why it was purported today that they interviewed Mike Vrabel for head coach, and that guy is a culture setter and would be a wonderful move for them to make. Plus, he's a New England guy, so you get him back from New England.
But I don't know.
You just got to hire a strong offensive coordinator.
Moving on. Although, do you know that Vrabel has been, what do they call it? Like helping. I don't know what the word is. Like if you're
consulting?
Yes, that's it. Consulting for the Cleveland Browns defense.
Doesn't mean anything.
Well, so it's kind of like
it's a job.
Yeah, but hasn't done very well. That's just, I mean, I liked him as Tennessee. I mean, I think he definitely got that team to overachieve. He's
Remember, he's consulting. He's not calling the fucking plays on Sundays.
But. All right, next game, 49ers at Cardinals. Cardinals 4.5-point favorites. So Brock Purdy is out of this game. Josh Dobbs will get the start. On the other side, the Cardinals did put James Conner on injured reserve. Why would you do that? At this point in the season, I'm not sure. But anyway, Kyler Murray does have incentives in his contract for 50 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown for $750K. Although I did have a prop on him last week where I needed him to get to 40 and he only had 31. So it didn't seem too concerned with running last week. So I don't know if he'll do it this week. I don't want any part of this game either. You got anything?
That's horrible.
Okay. And then the final game is the only game that really is of interest this week. Vikings at Lions. Lions are 2.5-point favorites. The winner of this game gets the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yes.
And the loser gets the 5 seed. So Lions did win this matchup earlier in the year by 2 points, 31-29. Now, we've seen over the past few weeks, the Lions' defensive injuries have finally caught up to them. I mean, the 49ers were just moving right on down the field last week, which they hadn't been able to do all half the season. So that is a concern. But when it comes down to it, I'm going to take the Lions. I'm probably going to do a money line instead of the spread. And I will parlay this with like the Ravens and the Bucks. And I think that's the best approach on this week. Who do you like?
I love the Vikings.
Wait a second. Why do you love the Vikings?
Because the Lions defense is shot.
Okay.
And I think we're going to see the demise, boom, boom, of the Lions. They lose this week, they're going to lose first round of the playoffs.
Okay. And so there's no Eagle fandom seeding.
There's nothing to do with it. It's all about these two teams matching up. I think the Vikings have been chasing Detroit all season, and it makes them hungry. And Detroit, even though they have still great offensive weapons available to Goff, they're going to run into problems with this offense. You got Jefferson, you got Addison, you got Naylor, all a wide receiver that are playing great, and Hockenson is starting to come into form. So I love Darnold here. Aaron Jones is running good, and nobody's talking about Cam Akers, who they picked up.
Oh my God,
late in the season against from the Rams because they weren't using them because they have Corum. And Cam Akers, who ended, the Vikings made the same move. They traded for Akers last year and then let him go in the offseason. So they got him back, so they have a little insurance for Aaron Jones, which I think is key for their playoff run in case something happens to Jones. He's shown that he's like nicked up a little bit a couple games ago. So I love how Minnesota's set up going into the playoffs here, and I think that they've been looking at this game, chasing Detroit, as I was trying to say earlier, and they're ready and focused for this game.
It's going to come down to who makes the mistake. And did you know, I didn't realize this, but Ben Johnson was, who is the offensive coordinator for Lions, was on the Miami Dolphins staff when Brian Flores was the head coach. And apparently there's some animosity there because I guess Flores fired him. So that's interesting. But the Lions defense is a concern, but I think it's going to come down to a turnover or something of that nature. Who makes the mistake? And if you're looking at these two teams, who's most likely to make the mistake? It's Sam Darnold.
Why would you say that?
Because
has he done that this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, maybe the last few games a little less so, but yes.
I hate to tell you, but Sam Darnold looks like probably top 4 quarterback in the league right now, the way he's played this year.
He's played well the last few.
Granted, he's got probably the best receiver in the league.
It's coming. His time
Jefferson
is coming.
Okay, we'll see.
So we'll see.
Because he's not playoff tested.
Oh,
so
he's certainly
you can't
not.
100% trust anybody who's not playoff tested.
The big
they got to
game,
prove
the
it.
bright lights.
That's a great point. We haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of in obscurity. I'm sorry, but you're playing a little bit of obscurity when you're in Minnesota.
A little bit of pressure now.
All drinking the Kool-Aid.
Talking
and no
about
what
next
you do,
season. Are they going to bring him back? All that
it's
stuff.
It's not like the pressure cooker that the playoffs are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. So.
But for this week, I think that they can not coast. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a battle. But the fact that their defense is so banged up in Detroit, I don't think that they're going to be able to stop Minnesota at the end of the day.
All right. So that's going to do it for us for week 18. That's going to do it for us for season 5. But if you're watching, remember to like and subscribe so you'll know when we're back next year.
Good season. We picked a lot of winners.
Good luck.
Tried to help a lot of people out there. I hope you listen to the advice that we gave.
And peace out.